Well, I'm making this video rather late at night. Could have waited till the morning, but I said, nah, let's just do it now, see what happens. I've been thinking, stuff been rolling around in my head. Different concepts about the whole way we argue and the whole obstacle to gaining mutual understanding and the stumbling blocks, whatever you want to call them, these things, these little ideas and notions that get in the way of being able to communicate a whole idea with people. Because they, if you look at knowledge and say it's some sort of progressive thing, like you have to know the ABCs and then you have to know the FYWs and then it goes up the scale. People can have a bad piece anywhere in that thing, or they can have two bad pieces, and so you have to get those bad pieces out before you can build anything further, because everything further up is going to be corrupted if you start doing the spelling wrong early, kind of thing, or whatever the metaphor would be. So, sort of, I was thinking about like the metric system. Somebody brought that up last week or something in a conversation, and then I was, just different things were running through my head. And how, okay, America was tried to do the metric system thing. It made perfectly good sense that we switch, and we couldn't handle it, so we gave up, and it was stupid. We should have just got the job done, because it was the right thing to do. It was the rational, reasonable, correct, proper, so you could call that a truth, let's say. And we rejected the truth because it wasn't convenient. We just didn't want to switch, and so we denied ourselves a truth, a better, a more efficient way of living, merely for no good reason, really, just because we were being obstinate. Boy, I'm really having trouble. Assholes. Really am tired. Didn't sleep much today, and I got to get up early. But whatever. I thought it would be good to make the video at night for some reason, because it was on my mind. Didn't want to screw it up after. Who knows what happens when you wake up? You could be, could have a weird dream, and the whole thing flies out of your head. So, so it's this whole problem of familiarity is where I came down to this conclusion. It's like we're familiar with the bullshit, the assumptions. And that's why this stupid 2,000-year-old stories can have power, is because we get familiar with them. We're raised in them. And that becomes very powerful, because now to extract them later in life, you have to extract a whole bunch, all the shit it's connected to, everything built on that familiar notion of what the truth was. And so it just becomes harder and harder to extract it, the more it ends up being the heart of somebody's philosophy. A piece of bullshit ends up being the heart of their philosophy. And it's really hard to do the heart transplant thing, to pull the old heart out without the patient dying and slip a new one in there that'll somehow do the right thing, that it'll maintain the rest of the philosophy without everything coming, falling apart, or at least falling apart in a way that they can handle. And that's really the game here. We're really not arguing logic anymore. We're just arguing with people's attachments to bullshit. What piece of bullshit are you attached to? And that needs to be eradicated from your dopey philosophy for you to get it, for you to, get the truth, get the rest right, to build the rest of the logical chain. And it's really it's the whole game. It's really it. It's just finding the piece of bullshit and trying to find some way to wedge it out of people's heads. So where I'm going with this is that the key piece of bullshit that we all start off life with, our consciousness and how we develop, is this notion that we're somehow part of something that makes sense. If there's any kind of thing wrong, we always kind of figure, well, what did I do? How did I do something wrong? Because the system is always presumed to be right when you're young. Even the society or your parents or whatever the structure, even nature, the whole system is always validated. And we are kind of put in this insecure position where, well, everybody else is doing it, or everything else is accepting it, why shouldn't I play along? And so we try to conform ourselves to it. We try to find some way to fit into it. And we never really have an opportunity to be critical and say, because we just don't have the competence when you're young, to say, wait a minute, this is all made out of shit, because we assume certain things. We assume our parents are right, are smarter than we are. We assume this, like I said, systems know what they're doing because they seem to have such power. You sort of assume something with power has earned its power, okay, but it hasn't, and that's the game. And so it's a key point for me is this whole nature thing, because even if you get people free of their God, then they start rationalizing their life based on nature as the blueprint, a valid nature, a nature that somehow knows what it's doing, that this mush makes sense. And we're so fixated on the doing and the accomplishing and the having, and so obsessed with satisfying this thing called desire, and actualizing it, however you want to phrase it, as that being the mission, that we just fall right into our role as a mechanical, consuming and reproducing little monster, and we just play the game. And then when somebody challenges that, the people just resort to rationalizations to protect the kernels, those assumptions that are built into them, that yes, the world must make sense, yes, it somehow makes sense to be attracted to things, yes, it makes sense to, get the thing and then go to the next thing and chase it, and then go to the next thing and chase it. And it's just presumption, though. They're just presuming purpose to exist in this perpetual game we're playing through generation to generation. And I just think if people could reboot, if they could start over, like gain a bunch of knowledge, factual knowledge, like evolution, like biology, chemistry, physics, gain the basic knowledge of how the mechanical systems work, how even some of our psychology works, and then just take that knowledge and try to separate it from the immature bullshit, the familiar notions of what makes sense to them, what is comfortable for them, what they've always believed. If they could just separate those two things and start over, and then just look at the facts and allow them to fill in the blanks, allow the facts to decide what the rest of the chain should look like. That's the way, if this way to do it, that would be the way to do it, the starting over thing. And I think I had a point like that, maybe a couple of them in my life, where I just had one of those moments where you just realize, oh, it's so fucking obvious. Yeah, I assumed that this made sense. And if you don't assume that, well, then you can start seeing how it physically makes sense, but it makes no sense intellectually as a purposeful thing. And so now you can start accounting for all the bullshit that exists, because you're not justifying it by saying, well, why doesn't God do this, or why doesn't God? Because there's no God is the obvious answer. It's just stupid to think so. It's stupid, and then once you eliminate that benign intelligence out there looking over us, you look at nature and you say, yes, I find it attractive and pleasant, but why do I do that? Well, because I've been developed and built to do that. Of course it's comfortable to me. It's I've been made to find it comfortable. That doesn't mean much. And so then if I really look at it, well, what is it? I mean, it's all these little reproducing and consuming machines consuming each other, because they have nothing else to consume. I sort of made this point in Stickam the other night, that's really the game here, is that this little uncontrollable reproducing thing got projected into the game on planet Earth, and just kept reproducing and modifying and reproducing, but it's trapped on an island. And so we had no real choice, but eventually it would just start consuming each other. The reproducing machines wouldn't have anything else to consume but each other. It's the only logical solution to the problem of the finite conditions. And even if they weren't finite, they still might adapt to doing that, because it would be convenient. It'd be just convenient to be born and then eat your mother. I mean, it's convenient, or vice versa. So I mean, it's just that plain insidious. And so there's nothing. If we start as and this is like it's kind of important, people. I mean, you can pretend it's, well, we can just assume anything, and it all doesn't matter in the end. No, it's kind of important, because if we're just chasing our own tail and leaving a bunch of blood and guts on the ground, it's kind of important that we know that and try to do something to confine the damage, limit the damage. Otherwise, we're real huge failures. And if what's going to define the fact that we're failures is the fact that we couldn't get over 2,000-year-old assumptions or 10,000-year-old assumptions, I mean, that really, we really have insulted our intelligence. If that's the whole reason why we ended up failing, is because we were just too dependent on an old, stupid notion about how the right way to do something is, or how the right way to think is, or what a valid fact is. I mean, something that simple. I mean, just letting go of a stupid notion, and the reason why it has control over your stupid brain is completely psychological, because it always did, because it did when you were a kid. And once you have the right or the freedom to step past that conditioning, you can see it for what it is. You don't have to see it through that corruption of attachment and addiction and familiarity.